The next day he woke up, but when he looked in the mirror, he still had his costume on. Or so he thought. He tried to take it off, but couldn't. He tried everything, but the sheet wouldn't budge. When he went down for breakfast, no one responded to him, no one looked at him. Even though he didn't feel hungry, he tried to grab a glass of milk, but his hand went right through it. It took him an hour to realize he had turned into a ghost. He tried to put on his backpack to go to school, but he couldn't pick it up either. His hands passed through everything. On the street, no one noticed him. He tried to scare people, but no one could hear him. He was on his way to class when he saw his classmate, Mario, the one he teased every day, saying goodbye to an elderly woman. He overheard her say,
"I know you're sad, but your parents will return someday and everything will be all right."
"You've told me that many times, Grandma, but I miss them so much."
The boy shed a tear and continued walking to school. The ghost followed him. He hadn't known that Mario's parents weren't with him. His elderly grandmother was taking care of him. When he arrived in class, he saw that his seat was empty. The teacher mentioned his disappearance and asked everyone to keep an eye out in case they found him. Suddenly, he felt a pang in his vanished stomach. My parents must be missing me. He returned home, but they weren't there. They had left a note saying they had gone on a trip and would be back in a week. Also, the note said, "Your grandmother will pick you up tonight." He suddenly felt like he was going to end up just like his classmate Mario. Not knowing what to do, he sat on the grass in the park all day. In the afternoon, he saw Mario walking by and decided to follow him. At his house, he saw Mario looking after his grandmother, preparing dinner and the next day's meals, and hanging the laundry. It took him so long that he started doing his homework late at night. He fell asleep over his notebook. Harold felt sorry for him, and all his teasing now seemed cruel. He remembered the witch's words, "You have been cruel, and for that you will live in Halloween forever." At that moment, he realized he was going to stay like this forever, for all eternity. A wave of sadness washed over his soul. He missed his parents, his dog. He missed the breeze on his face, pancakes with honey. Although now he wouldn't have to go to the dentist or feel any pain. But the pain in his heart was greater than any physical pain. There he was in Mario's house, watching him sleep over his notebook. At some point, Mario went to bed, leaving his homework unfinished. Harold looked at his notebook and suddenly understood everything. The maths problems he could never solve, the difficulty he had with everything, were gone. He could understand anything. This surprised him. His mind was somehow infinite. With this realization, he spent the whole night deep in thought. The next morning, he accompanied Mario to school and sat at his desk again. There was a surprise test. Mario struggled with the problems. Harold blurted out the answers, they were so obvious. Suddenly, he saw Mario writing down everything he said. Seeing this, Harold kept giving the answers and Mario kept writing everything down. This was how Harold realized that Mario could hear him. One of the problems on the exam was to draw the Fibonacci sequence spiral. Harold could see all the solutions right in front of him. The sequence was so obvious. This sequence starts like this. What's curious is that every number after 0 and 1 is found by adding the two previous numbers together. Harold explained to Mario all the instructions for drawing it.
Draw a square. Draw another square of the same size below the first. Draw a third square, which is the sum of the two before it. Keep adding squares, each one being the sum of the previous two. Now mark a point in the opposite corners. Connect the points with curves to create the spiral.
Suddenly, Harold realized that he had seen this shape in nature. He had seen it in the shells of snails, in the way leaves grow on plants, and even in some flowers. It was so beautiful.